Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. A very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you back to today's Hindu Newspaper Analysis. As you know, it is your daily morning routine. Every day at 10 a.m. sharp, we bring to you this live Hindu Newspaper Analysis, and I thank you all for joining in right on time. Before we begin, just a very quick reminder about a couple of very important things. First, we have an extremely important live session coming here for you on the 1st of Feb at 8 p.m. Don't forget to join us where we will be discussing some of the most important takeaways of the budget. 1st of Feb is when the budget will be released. On that very day itself, we will be discussing what exactly are the takeaways, mostly from the examination point of view. What are the new schemes that the Government of India has launched? What is their focus for the coming year? Also, reminding you, just in case you have not subscribed to our channel, please do hit the subscribe button, and as soon as the session ends, do move over to our Telegram channel to attend the Hindu quiz based on the topics that we discuss here today. So let's begin without any further ado. Let's see what are the topics that we have here for you. Today's Hindu newspaper, in fact, had a lot of very important news stories. If you have seen that, you would know it by yourself. The first important article that we have taken up is from the editorial section, where the author is talking about the NREGA scheme. I am sure all of you know about the NREGA scheme. It is a scheme under which the rural population of the country especially is provided ensured employment. The very simple term of the scheme is, if you belong to a rural area, then in any rural area of India, you can demand that you want to work from the government. Minimum of 100 days of paid employment will be provided to you. So 100 days per year of paid employment will be provided to you. What kind of employment? This employment will be unskilled manual labor. So this will be unskilled manual labor. For example, let's say there are some construction activities that are going on in a panchayat. Small construction activities are usually where most of these workers would be involved. Now, this NREGA scheme was launched mainly for two purposes. One purpose we all know. That purpose is that we wanted to increase the wages, we wanted to increase the salary, the income standing of people living in the rural areas. All of you know that that was first objective. However, there was one more objective to it. The other objective to the NREGA scheme, which we usually don't talk about, is to stop or to reduce migration from the rural areas to the urban areas. Now, please understand this. In our cities, there's a lot of migration where people come in from rural areas to these big cities in search for better jobs, in search for employment opportunities. Because in rural areas, if you don't have your own agricultural field, there are not many employment opportunities. So before NREGA was introduced, thousands and lakhs of people every single year used to migrate from rural areas to the urban areas, thus putting a lot of pressure on the cities. So NREGA wanted to stop that as well. There is one more point about NREGA that many people ignore. As per NREGA, 33% of the jobs have to be reserved for women. Of all the jobs that are given, at least 33% have to be given to women. Now let me ask you this question. Do you think this is fulfilled or not? Do you think we really give 33% jobs to women under NREGA? What is your idea? Yes or no? This is just on paper. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of no. You would be, those who are saying no, you would be very surprised to know. If you look at the reports that talk about NREGA, over 55% jobs are actually given to women, not just 33%. Over 55% jobs constantly, year after year, are given to women under NREGA. Now, this is a very interesting discovery. This has also had a very interesting impact. Now, try and understand this. Let's try just understand this. See, let's say in a rural area, there is a family that lives. In the family, if the male, the husband says, I'm going to the city, I will earn, I will send some money back to home. It's a very normal occurrence. It's a usual thing. But what happens is, if a woman has to move from a rural area to an urban area to work, in most cases you will see women does not move alone. If she has to move, then the entire family will move with her. It's not that women alone will go and say, I will send money. No, usually it doesn't happen in rural areas. So when a woman migrates from rural area to urban area, what happens is you have a lot more migration. With NREGA, what has happened interestingly is because a lot of these jobs are being given to women, the wages of women have increased, because of which that migration has also come down. So do remember, NREGA was not just aimed at increasing the capacity or wages, it was also aimed at stopping and reducing migration, and it has been successful in that as well. However, this article is not about praising NREGA. This article is actually on the opposite end. The article says that NREGA, in fact, has had a lot of issues, and the government for some reason is not just able to make it better. Recently, in fact, the government, after looking at a lot of criticism, has made a committee to look into how to improve NREGA. The problem here is that rather than making a committee as per the author, government should have talked to the workers who work under NREGA. Government should have talked to the panchayats where the NREGA work actually takes place. Just having a high-powered committee at the top would not really have any impact. If you look at different states, there is a disparity of how NREGA is implemented. Poorer states that don't have a lot of money, Bihar, UP, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, there you will see NREGA not being implemented very well. On the other hand, richer states that do have money of their own, they still have better implementation. There are a lot of problems about NREGA that this article talks about. Let's see them one by one. The first problem that the article says is about the wages. See, whichever job that you work in, doesn't matter you work in government, you work in private sector, your one expectation as a worker is at the end of the day, at the end of my job or at the end of my month, I should get a salary without asking, right? That is the most basic requirement, that is the most basic expectation you have from any job. You work throughout the day, you work throughout the month, the only thing you expect is at least salary should be given on time. That is the most basic requirement, but that is not happening with NREGA workers. A lot of NREGA workers have been delayed salary. It has become quite a norm now. In 2016, Supreme Court in fact said that the salary should be paid on time because as per the courts, if the salary is not paid on time, this is equal to forced labor, which is prohibited under the constitution, but even then that is not happening. There are so many various levels where officials have to sign before the money is released that in most of the cases it has become a norm that salary will not be given on time. Second problem, if you see, government is thinking that we are spending a lot of money on NREGA. In the past few years, in fact, the budget for NREGA has come down. Because government thinks, no, we are making a lot of expenditure, let's reduce the budget. That should not be the case. See, NREGA is a demand-driven program. What is demand-driven? Demand-driven means if someone comes and asks for a job under NREGA, if they demand a job, you have to give them a job for at least 100 days in a year. If you can't give them a job for these many days, you have to give them salary of at least 100 days. So the suggestion is rather than just cutting down NREGA budget, we should choose what are the sections of the society which require NREGA more. For example, those areas where the concentration of NREGA jobs is lower, those households where not even one member has a NREGA job, we should distribute it evenly. Let's assume there is one house where 5 members have NREGA jobs, then there is one house where no member has a NREGA job. Rather than doing this, let's rationalize this. Let's divide it so that everyone can take advantage. So government should not just cut down on expenditure, government should focus on how can we spread it as much as possible. Third point that they have, run the program not like a scheme. Don't focus on how much money are we spending, what will we get in return. As I discussed earlier as well, a lot of instances have been seen where the state governments don't have enough money, where the central government also is reducing its fund, reducing its budget for NREGA. This should not be considered as just another scheme of the government. Rather than that, it is a scheme which is actually ensuring that multiple goals of the government are met, as we discussed earlier as well. The government also has to have discussions with participatory nature, meaning that government should have workers, the gram panchayats, all of these should participate and tell the government how to make it better, rather than someone sitting at the top deciding how should we actually make the NREGA scheme better. The government has also tried to introduce certain reforms in the past. So what has been done is, government has tried to use technology. For example, what the government has done is, government has actually seen how exactly is it that we can use technology to improve NREGA. So what they have done is, they have actually used a lot of apps that will track the attendance of the workers. So for example, there are certain apps that will track what is the work that the workers are doing. They will also track what exactly it is that is the attendance of the workers. So there are a lot of apps actually that have tried to ensure that we actually track what is the attendance of the workers. The problem is, in that case, a lot of those apps have not been able to properly track their attendance. So there have been so many cases where we have seen that the worker may be present, but he is marked as absent. So workers don't have the trust in the technologies that are being used. So rather than the government actually using these technologies, the suggestion is the government should try to make it better. These are the problems that the article actually talks about. Just give me a moment, just a second. Sorry for that. Now, these are the things that the article actually talks about when you talk about NREGA. These are the problems that they have listed. Lack of funds, lack of participation from the lowest level, lack of participation from the gram panchayats, lack of technology that the government has used, they have not been working well. All these are issues. Now, if you see what exactly has been the impact of NREGA, not just on India, but on a larger population. NREGA as a scheme, in fact, has been appreciated by multiple agencies, including the World Bank as well. The reason being that NREGA has an impact on a lot of things. If you look at, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals that we have. In the Sustainable Development Goals also, NREGA has an impact on multiple goals. It reduces poverty. It aims to achieve zero hunger. By giving more salary to the people, it also ensures better health, better well-being, better quality of education, gender equality. All these goals of the Sustainable Development Goals are somewhere related to NREGA. Similarly, if you look at some of the numbers from Government of India, as I discussed earlier as well, surprisingly, over half of the jobs are given to women. Year after year, over 50% of jobs are given to women under NREGA, which has ensured that women also don't have to migrate. There are multiple reports that prove that when a woman in a household starts to earn, that will have a major impact on how the household actually eats. The nutrition intake of the household improves much better if a woman starts to earn as compared to a male. All of that has to be attributed to NREGA. The government has to use certain technology to make sure that we keep a track of what are the assets being built, but that should not hamper how exactly it is that we use NREGA for the welfare of the workers. Now, having said that, there are a few other things about NREGA that I wanted to discuss with you. For example, number one, the first issue with NREGA is, apart from the salary, apart from the wages, apart from all that part, the one other big issue is, if you have realized, increasingly a lot of villages are becoming a part of city. Have you realized this? If you live in your city, let's remember your childhood. The villages which are outside your city, increasingly now they are becoming a part of your city. The area of your entire city is being expanded. Have you realized this? The earlier villages have now become urban areas. Now there is a big problem with that. When you say an urban area is now a rural area, what happens is, because the NREGA scheme is only for rural areas, when a village becomes a part of the city, then in that village, you cannot have NREGA scheme. Do you realize that? The NREGA scheme is only for rural areas. So meaning that when it is only for rural areas, you cannot have that scheme in those areas which become a part of the city. That is a big problem, which we don't realize. That is why a lot of states are actually bringing in urban employment scheme as well, just like we have the rural employment scheme. Then there is one other issue. There's a lot of criticism that the infrastructure that is created under NREGA, that infrastructure actually is not that great. The infrastructure that we have under NREGA, all that infrastructure is not really living for many years. The quality is getting deteriorated. All these issues are being seen under NREGA. Now, let me ask you this question. You tell me in the chat. Do you think a scheme such as NREGA should continue, or do you think the NREGA scheme is not really giving any benefit, is not building any infrastructure? What do you think should happen in that case? What are your views about it? Should NREGA continue? Or as you remember, some years back, the Prime Minister in fact made a statement that NREGA is just a scheme where government is giving money to people for digging up a hole and then to refill the hole. Remember? Those kind of statements were also made. But the fact is, even the present government has continued NREGA. Okay, so I'm seeing a resounding yes for NREGA. Perfect. So these are the details in this article. These were suggestions that we had. If you have any questions about this article, please feel free to ask. And then we'll move on to the second topic of the day. Any specific question that you should ask, please let me know. And there are a lot of people who are remarking or who are saying that NREGA provides 150 years of work. So basically, 150 days is for certain areas. Usually it is 100 days only. When there is a certain area which has floods or drought, where the government feels that people would not have their agricultural income. So for some years, government decides to increase the number of days to 150, but usually it is 100 only. Okay? Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So the second topic that we wanted to take up is mainly on the question of tobacco. Now, what exactly is the topic all about? What is the issue that we have? Now, in the economical sphere, most of the economists believe that India, especially the government of India, has not been focusing a lot on taxing tobacco. The government of India has the potential to put much more taxes on tobacco as compared to what we do right now. This is what this article is all about. In fact, there have been multiple articles written on the same, that tobacco products are something which have a lot more potential for the government to earn. Now, you also know products such as cigarette, bidi, tobacco, alcohol, etc. are those products on which usually the governments put a lot of taxes. Why? Because ideally, the government wants to control the consumption of these things. The government wants to ensure that people don't consume these kind of things. So government should increase taxes as much as possible. However, the problem is the government of India, as per many experts, is not giving or is not putting as much taxes as they should. For example, the author here says, if you look at 2017, in 2017, we have a situation where the government actually only earned about 537 billion rupees from tobacco. However, the health burden was over 2000 billion rupees. Now, what is health burden? See, when someone consumes tobacco, when someone consumes cigarette, etc., the health burden means that in that case, you can fall ill. When you fall ill, then you might go to a government hospital, and the government hospital then would have to take care of you. So you are actually an expenditure on the government. When you consume tobacco, you can fall ill, you might take a holiday from work, so you might not contribute to the GDP. This is called the health burden. Usually, when the countries impose taxes on tobacco, alcohol, etc., when they impose high taxes, the logic is the government should earn more money from taxes as compared to what the government has to spend on taking care of these people. That is the entire idea. But in India, that is not happening. As the numbers here tell you, in India, the revenue that we earn from tobacco is much lesser as compared to the health burden that we have. Now, there are a lot of issues with this. As per the author, ever since the GST has come into picture, the tax on tobacco is much lower as compared to what it used to be. There are other countries also that have the GST. So how have they handled the situation? In other countries, what they have done is, apart from GST, many countries impose extra taxes also on these things, like the VAT, like excise, etc. But in India, even that is not happening. If you see here the numbers, if you look at when the GST was introduced, after GST, there is only 8% additional tax on cigarettes, only 1% additional tax on BD, only 11% additional tax on tobacco. Ideally, the government should make these things as expensive as possible so that either people don't buy it, so their health will be safeguarded, or secondly, if the people do buy it, at least the government will earn money from that. But that is not happening here. Despite cigarettes only making a 15% of tobacco user in the entire country, the government is putting most taxes on cigarette only. If you look at the economy of India, if you look at what kind of tobacco do people consume mostly consume BDs only. But the problem is, on BDs, the taxes are the lowest. It is on cigarettes that most of our taxes are being put. But if you look at the consumption of cigarette, it is much lower than BDs. The cigarette companies also, these are very powerful, rich companies. They have a lot of lawyers. So they find many loopholes how to lower their taxes. For example, taxes on cigarette depends upon the length of the cigarette. So they play with the length, they make it slightly shorter, they make it slightly longer. The more that they play with it, the lesser taxes that they have to pay. All these things are impacting government's revenue collection. There is one more issue here. The tax that we have on the tobacco products, all of these taxes are based on the value of the product. These are called ad valorem taxes. Ad valorem means taxes which depend on the value of the product. So if you buy a 50 rupees product, the tax will be some percentage of 50 rupees only. If you buy a 2000 rupee product, then your tax will be some percentage of 2000 rupees. That is ad valorem taxes. In case of tobacco, the suggestion is that taxes should be much higher. There should be a flat rate of taxes so that we can either ask people, or we can either demotivate people from consuming tobacco. On the other hand, we can have more earning from tobacco. These are the suggestions that we have. Now, tobacco problem is not just a problem in India. In fact, the WHO also talks about tobacco and the harmful impact that tobacco has. For example, smoking cigarettes, as per WHO, is the easiest way or the most common way for people to intake tobacco around the world. By 2030, 70 lakh deaths, 7 million deaths will be caused from smoking only. The problem is, in middle income nations, in fact, young people have much bigger problem with tobacco, and that is why in middle income nations and lower income nations, a lot of youth waste their energy, waste their money in just consuming tobacco, and all of that has to be curtailed. If you look at the facts in India, an increasing number of population is consuming tobacco. About 10 lakh deaths in India can be connected to smoking, and over 2 lakhs due to second-hand smoke exposure. So even if you are not smoking, but you are usually in the company of those who are smoking, even that has a major impact on your health. That is called passive smoking. Not just this, 27 crore people above the age of 15 years and 8.5% school-going children also consume tobacco in India. When you consider India's population such a high base, 8.5% becomes a huge number. Tobacco has major risks that everyone knows about. There have been multiple studies done on that, and that is why government has to ensure that it is actually taxed at a much higher rate. Now, I in fact have a question in the chat. Some people are asking, why doesn't the government ban it? See, the problem with banning it is, number one, it is a source of revenue for the government. Like alcohol, etc., provide most of the taxes to the state government. So, If you start banning these things, one, the problem is in any advanced democracy, banning is not really a solution, because you ban something right now, tomorrow you'll ban something else, then you'll ban something else. At the end of the day, the government would have to depend upon and hope that people are smart enough to make a good choice. Rather than banning it, it is obviously always better to tax it higher. Do you remember when in the COVID lockdown, the alcohol shops were closed and then they were opened up? All of a sudden, the state governments increased the taxes on alcohol so much. Do you remember? That alcohol taxes, all of that, the alcohol, I think MRP became double, the state government increased taxes. When that happened, even then people lined up just to buy alcohol. That has become a major source of the revenue for the government. So government doesn't want to ban it, because again, banning it would not really have the impact. Rather than that, the government should rather try and impose more taxes on that. I have a question from Meeta. Any urban work like NREGA? So NREGA is a scheme of the central government. There are certain state governments that have an urban scheme. Tamil Nadu, for example, has an urban employment scheme. So there are some state governments that have an urban employment scheme, but all over India, we don't have an urban employment scheme as such. NREGA is for rural employment. Now, the next article is about the problem in Indian universities. The author is saying that it's a good thought to invite foreign universities to set up their campuses in India, but the problem is it might actually backfire. The author says that Indian universities have a lot of issues, and now we have foreign universities coming to India. What might happen is the few good Indian teachers in Indian universities, they might get a better salary in those foreign institutions, and they might also change their jobs. So rather than the government's hope that Indian universities can learn from foreign universities, Indian universities can become better, rather than that happening, the opposite may happen, and the people may actually start switching to foreign universities, and the Indian universities will go further down. The author says that Indian universities are facing a lot of issues. Biggest issue being a lot of interference from the bureaucrats, from the political class. See, academics and academicians are always a driving force of any country. They are the ones who are responsible for producing bright minds that will run the country tomorrow. But when you try to put government in charge of these universities, then a certain ideology that the government believes in, only those kind of ideologies are propagated in the universities as per the author. He is saying there are so many universities where bureaucrats actually just place their wives or husband that you go and work there as the chairman, you go and work there, you handle these. In a lot of universities, even today, look at universities around India, a lot of them have vice chancellors as bureaucrats, not academicians. A lot of universities around the country, you talk about JNU, you talk about Delhi University, you talk about a lot of these universities where bureaucrats are made the in charge. They are the ones who are made vice chancellors, not the academicians, not the people who have been studying or who have been in this field for such a long time. So if you don't trust the academicians to run your universities, if you don't trust that a person at that stature would be able to provide a vision, that is why the universities are declining in India. Look at any global ranking, you will not find many Indian universities at the top. There is not a lot of focus on research, and also it all comes down to the issue of budget. If you look at the budget that the government of India has been giving to education, more specifically to higher education, that is one of the lowest in the entire world as a percentage of the GDP. For example, at central level, the financial aid given to the students was about 2,078 crores in FY 2022. Last year it was 2,400 crores. It has also been decreasing year after year. Not just this, if you look at HEFA, that is Higher Education Financing Agency, that mostly gives funding for infrastructure loans to institutions. They give funding to universities to build labs, etc. Just imagine their budget used to be 2,000 crores and it has now come down to how much? 1 crore only. Just imagine. The institution that has to give loan to institutions to build infrastructure, their entire budget is 1 crore only. So how would they actually go ahead and help the universities? Similarly, the UGC University Grants Commission, their budget, all of that is coming down. Now, what happens when you reduce the budget? When you reduce the budget of universities, number one, you are taking away their power or their hope that they can employ better teachers. Let's say if a university wants to hire an expert teacher, hire someone from US, a very famous professor, let's say of Harvard or MIT, an Indian university wants to bring him here. Obviously, that professor will charge a higher salary. If they don't have the budget, how will they give the salary? They can't. Second problem, these universities, the higher their budget is, the more scholarships they can give. If they don't have the budget, how can they encourage more people to apply? That means you are creating an uneven field. That means you are asking that a person who doesn't have money cannot study here. All these are issues because of it that universities are still not working well. It all boils down to the problem of budget. Now many people are asking, sir, why don't we give more budget? See, the problem is in India, the income of the government is restricted. A lot of people don't pay income tax. Because of that, government has to decide how to spend that money that they have. Defense budget takes a lot of our money. Then there are subsidy schemes that are being run, food schemes that are being run. So government doesn't have enough money at the end of the day. The solution has to be to increase tax base and nothing else. I have a question repeatedly. What does it mean when it is said NREGA provided 142 crore man-hour work? That means number of hours for which the NREGA work was provided, multiply by number of people who were given that work, you will come to 142 crore. 142 crore man-hour work. So 142 crore of hours of work was provided amongst all the people. Okay. I'll take one more question. Why Indian government stopped foreign students studying on subsidy? Again, it's the problem again lies with the shrinking budget. When the pandemic hit, most of the government finances were hit. The GDP was almost zero. Sorry, the GST collection was almost zero in the pandemic. Free vaccination program had to be rolled out. So the government doesn't have any extra source of income. At the same time, the government's expenditure is increasing. So there has to be a cut somewhere, except when the government can actually increase its revenue collection, which is not happening in the short run. The next article is about the Indus Waters Treaty. As you know, what has happened? The government of India has issued a notice to Pakistan government saying that we want to renegotiate the Indus Waters Treaty. Now, what we have not seen is the reason why Indian government issued the notice was a few days back, Pakistan started this issue. Pakistan approached the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. They went to this court saying that India is building Kishanganga hydropower project. We don't like it. Please make sure that India doesn't build those projects, etc. Now, what exactly is the Indus Water Treaty? I'm sure all of you know this. The Indus River and the 5 tributaries of Indus. So 6 rivers in total. These rivers flow from India to Pakistan. So Pakistan, when they got independent, or when India got independent, when Pakistan was created, Pakistan said that we want an assurance from India that we want to have at least some minimum amount of water. That is when the Indus Water Treaty was signed in 1960, when the World Bank came in and negotiated. Now the first question you should ask is, how did the World Bank come here? World Bank does not come in between treaties of this kind usually. So the reason why World Bank actually came here is that Pakistan actually went to World Bank for a loan that we want to build certain projects on these rivers. So World Bank said that first let us actually ensure that the water that you are getting, there is an agreement on that, and that is after which we will give you the loan. So that is how the Indus Water Treaty came into being in 1960 with the World Bank coming into the picture. Usually World Bank doesn't come in the picture. So make sure that you understand that part. Now, what was the treaty about? The treaty said out of the 6 rivers, 3 will be given to India, 3 will be given to Pakistan. The 3 rivers given to India will be Ravi, Beas and Satluj. RBS, Ravi, Beas and Satluj. I will show you the map. If you see this map, Ravi, Beas and Satluj, these 3 rivers, their water is India's. India can use in whatever way that they want. On the other hand, the other three rivers, that is Indus, Jhelum and Chenab, their water will be used by Pakistan. That was a division. Indus, Jhelum, Chenab for Pakistan, other three for India. One other condition was the rivers that are going to Pakistan, Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, for these three rivers, India can use their water, but we cannot consume or we cannot reduce the water flow. So if you are, let's say there's a river going to Pakistan, India can build some project on that, but that project should not reduce the flow of water. Then it will be allowed. The problem here is in that treaty, and please listen to this carefully. The problem starts because this treaty actually writes, there is a point in the treaty, that if India builds a project on the rivers that are going to Pakistan, if Pakistan thinks it is reducing their river flow, Pakistan has the right to challenge that project. So Pakistan is given almost a single-handed right to protect or to protest against whatever project India is building on these rivers. Now the problem here is, usually around the world, if you see, no such water treaty gives so much power to the lower riparian state. Usually when such treaties are signed, the upper riparian state, where the river actually flows first, they have most of the powers. But India, being the elder brother, thought, okay, let me give more powers to Pakistan. So Indus Water Treaty actually is more in favor of Pakistan as compared to India, because Pakistan has this option. They can raise any objection that they want so that they can delay India's projects, and that is what is happening. The Kishanganga hydropower project that India is building, Pakistan keeps on raising objections on that. Now what is the problem here? The treaty says in article number 9 that there are three ways to resolve the conflict. Please understand this. Treaty says there are three ways to resolve the conflict. The first way will be that you have to work within permanent Indus Commission. Now what exactly is this? The Indus Water Treaty said that both the nations, India and Pakistan, will appoint one representative that will keep on having discussions with themselves. That will be called Permanent Indus Commission. So Permanent Indus Commission will be first platform to resolve the issues. Second platform to resolve the issue will be World Bank will appoint an expert. Okay? If that also doesn't work, then the third point will be that you can go to permanent court internationally. Okay? Let me repeat one by one. The treaty said there are three ways to resolve an issue. First, Permanent Indus Commission, where India and Pakistan will sit together and resolve the issue. Second way, World Bank will appoint an expert. And the third way, if that doesn't happen, then you go to the international court. Now what has happened here is, Pakistan straight away has gone to the third option. Pakistan straight away has gone to a third option, that we are going to international court. India is saying that you should first go for first option. That doesn't work, go to second option. If that doesn't work, then you can go to third option. Pakistan is saying, no. I don't believe this. I will start from the bottom. I will go to third option first. So that is a problem here. Pakistan has straight away gone to third option, gone to international court, which India doesn't agree to. India says we already have Permanent Indus Commission talk there. Then they say we already have the World Bank appoint a neutral expert, let's talk there, but they're not doing that. They have already gone to international court. Now the interesting part is, this is not the first time Pakistan is doing it. It's a very common technique that Pakistan actually usually has, that Pakistan goes up to the international court just to delay India's project. So because Pakistan has gone to the international court, India has now given a notice of 90 days. Why 90 days? Because the treaty says this only, that if one of the two nations wants to change something in the treaty, they have to give a 90-day notice at least. So we have given 90-day notice that we now want to rewrite the treaty again. Why? Because India doesn't want to give this right to Pakistan, that you can raise objections whenever you want. That is the problem. Now it remains to be seen what happens in the renegotiations. But as I told you, it's a very, very different kind of a treaty, because usually whenever such a treaty is signed, the upper riparian state, that is the country where the water flows first will always keep most of the powers with itself, which India did not do in this case. We gave most powers to Pakistan. Not just this. If you actually see, although out of the 6 rivers, we have divided it 3-3, but that doesn't mean water is equally divided. The 3 rivers that India got only make up 20% of the water, and the 3 rivers that Pakistan got makes up 80% of the total water. So even in that case, India has not really used its power in the treaty, and we want to renegotiate this again. India can, as I told you, can use the water of Pakistan's river also in a limited manner. We have been given the usage to make for hydro projects, etc. But Pakistan can also raise objections, and that is what they have been doing every single time. Now, the next article that we have here is that finally there will be command postings given to women officers in the army. After multiple court judgments, after the Supreme Court coming into the picture saying that army should provide permanent commission as well to women officers, finally we have a situation where the army will be giving command postings to women. Now what exactly is this? Let's try and understand. When you join the army, I'm not talking about the Agnipath scheme, I'm talking about the commissioned officers. When you join the army, there are 2 options. There is the short service commission. Short service commission means you work for 14 years. After 14 years, then you retire. Basically, then you join the private sector. If you retire after short service commission, you will not be given a pension. At the end of 14 years, you are given a choice. Do you want to continue? If you want to continue, you can convert that into permanent commission. Permanent commission that we have, that will be your career in the army till the end of your retirement. Permanent commission officers will be getting pension. Now, usually what used to happen was, women officers were not given an option for permanent commission except a few cases. Except in few cases, I'll tell you those cases. Women officers working in, let's say, education corps of army, women officers in the army working as judge, advocate, etc. They were given an option, but women army officers on the field were not even given an option for permanent commission. In 2020, the case went to Supreme Court. In the Babita Punia case, finally Supreme Court said that permanent commission should be given to women also in all the services except combat. Combat means where you actually go on the border to fight. So except combat, in other services, you should be given, or women officers should be given positions to command. Now, what is commanding position? Commanding position mainly is referred to colonel. Because when you become colonel, higher than that, then you command people under you. Usually to come at commanding position, usually at least 16 years of experience is required, 1-6. Because the women officers were forced to retire after 14 years of service only, they never completed 16 years, so they never came at that post of colonel in the commanding position. Now what has happened, finally after Supreme Court order, women officers will also be given the post of commanding officer called the CO. The commanding officer is the one that is given a lot of respect. Now, there has been a long fight about this. Women officers has been demanding this for a long time. The army has given multiple reasons why they don't favor, or why they did not favor in the past giving officer rank to women. The army said that they might not be suitable for combat positions. They also said that we might not have the larger base of the Jawans. They might not agree to the orders given by women officers. These were the fears that the army had, which the Supreme Court did not agree to. I have a question here which says, the Supreme Court ordered permanent commission to be given in all forms apart from combat. Why not combat? See, it is assumed, now you can't say it is right, but it is assumed that if women officers are posted in the line of combat also, in case they are taken as, let's say, prisoners of war, then they might be in a worse position as compared to male officers being taken as prisoners of war. That's an assumption. Because combat would require much more physicality. That is just a physical nature. That is not something that you can change because it requires more physicality. That is why this assumption has been made that they would not be more suitable when it comes to combat positions. And that is why even the Supreme Court has said apart from combat positions, in other positions you can have women officers. Now, the interesting part is many major nations actually do allow women officers in these positions. US, UK, Russia, all of them allow women to hold commanding positions. Some countries even allow women in combat positions as well. For example, look at the US Army. Many of their women officers have actually gone to serve in Afghanistan, to serve in Iraq, etc. So there are armies around the world that actually do that as well. The Supreme Court case where it was told by the Supreme Court to the army, you have to give permanent commission except in combat, was called the Babita Punia case. Do remember that? It was a 2020 case where the army was told that even after their short service commission, that is the 14 years is over, they should also be given an option if they want to convert it into permanent commission or not. These are the important articles that we had here for you from the Hindu newspaper today. All of these very important. I hope that you have understood the gist of it and you would be able to think more about all these, be it NREGA, be it the Indus Waters Treaty, so on and so forth. These are the important questions that we have for you. Please make sure you do try and write some of the answers. As soon as the session ends, we will have the Hindu quiz based on these topics on a Telegram channel. Do go there as soon as possible. You can use the link given in the description of the video to join the channel. These are the questions that we have. Number 1, taxation is one of the most cost-effective measures to reduce demand for tobacco products. Discuss. Second, what are some of the key challenges faced by universities in India? Suggest measures that can be taken to help India regain the position of home to world-class universities that it once had. Let's see if you can write these answers in 250 words. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow 10 a.m. live for the next Hindu newspaper analysis. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.